Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. This week's roadmap update has a lot of exciting news, so let's get to it. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for the support. And if you do enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing. We are actually approaching the 40,000 subscriber mark, which is just amazing. Plus, there are only 44% of you watching my videos who are not yet subscribed. So if you can hit that subscribe button, I would appreciate it. But on the flip side, that means that 56% of you are actually subscribed, which is just awesome. Thank you so much. So we have a great amount of new deliverables on this week's roadmap update, mostly due to the downstream team's schedule for Q3 being set. Now their schedules only show 1 quarter into the future, as the downstream team's work is largely reactive to the upstream team's work. Additionally, they have also added more tasks needed for server meshing and persistence to the network and persistent tech teams, which I will get to soon, as well as there being quite a lot of AI stuff coming along. So firstly, let us take a look at a couple of changes to Alpha 3.17, which is the first patch of 2022 due at the end of March. The first new addition is Outpost Homestead, Independent and Outlaw. Now this is creating a small home for the AI to live and shelter in, consisting of a central hub and a few internal and external modules. These provide the basic necessities to support a small group of people for an indefinite amount of time. So it sounds like this is referring to the homesteads within the Stanton system that we will find dotted around on the planets like Microtech and Hurst and possibly a lot of the moons as well. I don't think this is referring to the pyro-colonialism outposts, as it does specifically say Outpost Homestead. Hopefully this means more points of interest in the Stanton system. Now the next one is a bit of a beauty. It is Persistent Hangars, with it saying players will have the ability to have their own persistent hangars, and this will bring changes to the cargo gameplay loop by allowing players to buy cargo and send it to their hangars, then maximizing their cargo storage by allowing them to pack the goods themselves. Gone will be the days of getting booted from your hangars because you were there for too long. Having a persistent location that can act as a home and allow us to store all of our items and ships, and as it states, cargo as well. Watching these evolve over the course of this year and into the next year will just be incredible. So let's take a look at the new additions to the progress tracker. The first one is laser trip mines, which are explosives that use a light beam as triggers, exploding when someone or something comes into contact with the beam. Now this has 29 weeks work, which began at the end of this month, being July, meaning the work for this will finish around mid-February. And I expect this is just to be one of many FPS deployables that we will have access to in the future. Now the next deliverable is Frontier Clothing. The Frontier referencing, I assume, the Pyro system. This will be Frontier style clothing for players and NPCs to wear. Now this only has a very short 4 weeks work, which begins at the end of August until late September. Now next up is the Fire Hazard, which will track fire and temperature on static and dynamic objects. And for the initial release of fire, the feature will be set up on a select few vehicles. Now the work on this is actually coming to a close at the end of August, so there is a very good chance that we will see these selected vehicles capable of catching fire in hopefully the Q3 patch at the end of September. Not a confirmation, just a potential outcome. We have been following along with the development of the fire system, and it is looking insanely realistic. Tackling fires will be a large part of the engineering mechanic, and we will see this for only a few select ships first. No specification as to which ships, but it will be fun putting them out, I'm sure. Now the next feature is called Destructible Workflow, which will allow artists and designers to work with destructible objects. Now I'm not entirely certain what this will manifest itself as in the verse. For the first object types, will it be usable items or props that are just in the background? Maybe they can break during combat. We will see. Work on this lasts 7 weeks, which is coming to a close early August. So again, Q3 we may have items breaking, but again the question still stands as to what those items will be. Now moving on to AI, there are quite a few deliverables for AI to the progress tracker. The first one being AI navigation links, ladders and ledge grab. Now this is implementing specific adapters to allow the navigation system to be informed of potential nav mesh connections offered by ladders or ledge grab markup. So basically AI being able to climb a ladder or climb up something on a ledge. The navigation links already allow the creation of adapters that contain game code specific functionality to function as sort of translators between system specific domain into the navigation system. And work on this lasts 5 weeks, beginning early August until early September. But what looking up this has revealed to me is that the actual planetary nav mesh work is scheduled to complete mid-August. So it is likely that we will see actual NPCs making their way around planets in Q3. Again, it is likely that it could be more of a Q4 thing if it doesn't reach the cutoff date, but that is big news for AI this year. Anyway, continuing with AI, we have AI Trolley Push and Pull, which implements the ability for NPCs to use trolleys and trolley-like entities that they can move around the environment, pushing or pulling them from and to specific locations. It mentions that this requires the creation of a special path follower that can take into consideration external forces that needs to be balanced to achieve the desired speed. Now, work on this began back at the beginning of May and actually finishes at the end of August. The next AI feature is AI ground vehicles, and as you can imagine, this is the first pass on supporting NPCs controlling and driving ground vehicles. Again, this requires the new path follower, this time to take care of the vehicle's physical abilities to transform the NPC's movement request into the actual movement of the vehicle. Now, the work on this one is a little later than the other ones, happening between late September and early October. For the next AI feature, we have medical, and this involves implementing a variety of medical AI behaviors. For example, a patient will arrive at a hospital, check themselves in at the terminal, then wait to be seen, upon which they will be called to a room for diagnosis. The patient can then see doctors and nurses tending to the sick and injured people, while other patients will wait to be called, and doctors and nurses can be seen washing their hands, checking medical stock and dispensing medicine, with some patients falling asleep in medical beds. This is going to be like Theme Hospital by the time this comes out. But the work on this one kicks off early August and lasts 7 weeks until late September. Okay, for the final, or the proper final NPC activity, this is leisure, with leisure being a segment of the new civilian behavior system, controlling how the AI behaves when they have free time during their schedule. AI will create a lifelike environment by relaxing or having fun using things that are available to them, such as exercise equipment, jogging routes, TV monitors, seats and benches, and the mobiGlass. Just like the medical deliverable, this has 7 weeks work around the same time, so finishing late September. So some major work going on for the AI, giving them not just the ability to move around on a planet's surface, but actually the means to do so using vehicles as well. And all of these other qualities will play into each NPC's day-night cycle, really expanding on the PU and making it feel more alive and dynamic as NPCs are coming and going about their business, whether they're out at work or if they're just relaxing in their hab or in a bar. Now, the final AI feature, which is not referring to NPCs, is AI unmanned missile turrets, and this is adding AI-controlled missile turrets to improve defenses of green zones. Now, this only requires about 5 weeks work, which just kicked off according to the tracker and will complete around early to mid-August. Now, let's talk about missions, as we have some new mission deliverables added to the progress tracker. The first one is called Rescue and Transport Mission, which takes advantage of the AI follow behavior to create missions where players transport customers from one location to another, along with prototype missions where players must rescue imperiled clients from dangerous situations and escort them to safety. Sorry, that wasn't funny. I don't know why I laughed. So this is basically passenger transport missions, which will likely only start with a simple singular NPC requesting transportation. But this is the foundational work for eventually filling a Genesis Starliner with NPC passengers, hopefully spurring the ship's requirement a little bit as well. Anyway, I digress. The work on this begun back at the end of May and will complete towards the end of September, maybe missing the cutoff for Q3, but hopefully not. So the next mission deliverable is titled Infiltrate, Defend, with the underground facilities being the first place to benefit from the addition of spawn closets, which is where the NPCs or the AI can come in and out as and when needed, and this will allow CIG to really expand the suite of missions that can take place in these facilities, from all-out assaults to situations where you may be able to complete objectives without even needing to engage in combat. This will include both lawful and unlawful versions as well. It will certainly be refreshing to get more mission diversity, so each time that a mission takes you to these underground facilities, it isn't just a simple rinse-repeat scenario. Anyway, the work on this takes exactly the same amount of time as the rescue mission, completing around the end of September. The final card involving missions is the Comare mission improvements. Now this says several mission improvements and totally new missions set across and around the Comares, with a specific focus on PvP content, so player versus player. Very nice to see some of these older missions getting improvements and brought up to the new standards using the latest tech. Now the work on this only lasts 7 weeks, which started late June and finishes early August, so again there is a good chance to see these mission improvements with the Q3 patch at the end of September. So let's talk about server meshing. There are many new additions for the server meshing work, kicking off with dedicated game server mesh node. Now this implements multiple dedicated game servers and clients connected to the same instance of the hybrid server, and allows the dedicated game servers to exchange entities and authority over them. Now the work on this is beginning at the start of August and finishes towards the end of September, and basically handles the distribution of players and items and everything from one shard to the next. Now the next feature is the Shard Manager, which adds the functionality to the hybrid for what will become the Shard Manager component service. This is responsible for creating a shard in the Entity Graph database, which is where the status of everything is stored, ensuring it is seeded with an initial population of entities, communicating with matchmaking so that players can join a shard, talking to provisioning services so that the hybrid and the dedicated game servers can be assigned to a shard. Now this has 8 weeks work beginning now and also ending early September. Inventory unstow is next, which refers to the fetching of an item from an inventory and placing it into a shard. For example, a ship loaded with cargo being unstowed removes the ship and its associated cargo from the inventory and then places that into the game. Now this work implements moving an item's persistent data from an inventory into a shard managed by the entity graph and adding the item to the replication layer. This one has 7 weeks work, and similarly to the previous, it begins now and ends at the beginning of September. Next up we have Entity Stow and Destroy, which refers to moving an item into an inventory. So using the ship loaded with cargo again as an example, this time it is storing the ship and the cargo. This work implements the removing of items from the replication layer, moving its persistent data into an inventory managed by the entity graph. Now the work on this began back at the end of June and will complete mid-August. Now the next 3 are all APIs required for the server meshing system. The first is Item Port API, which allows tools like the Vehicle Modification app, or the VMA, to modify ship loadouts inside inventories. Work on this begins right now and finishes in early September as well. Shard Data Query API is next, which allows game code access to common queries against entity graph data, and the work on this is already underway and coming to a close at the beginning of August. And then we have the final API being Freeform Variable API. This is the Blackboard service for game code systems to write generic persistent variables, and work on this kicks off at the start of August and finishes early September. So this to me looks like there is a great chance that we will see static server meshing by the end of this year. Most of, if not all of the work on this uber important system is coming to a close around September. And of course, all being well, I am expecting CIG are really hoping to show static server meshing off at CitizenCon this year, with the intention of maybe implementing it into the PU for the last Q4 patch of 3.16. Now, of course, there is just as much chance, if not more chance, that this will be early next year, as I'm sure that this is no easy feat. And I'm certain that we will hear more about server meshing and its progress as this year progresses, and at the very least we know we will have a dedicated panel talking all about server meshing specifically at this year's Digital CitizenCon happening on October 9th. But seeing all this progress on server meshing making a lot of headway for September is definitely a good thing. So there are a couple of other features added to the progress tracker, the first one being Maya Live Link, which establishes a link between Maya and the Lumberyard Star Engine Sandbox editor, which is actually thanks to the Lumberyard engine's recent transition to open source, meaning CIG can now completely integrate many of their own tools that they've developed for the engine. For this Maya Live link, this means that animators will get more of a what you see is what you get preview quality of their work by seamlessly integrating the editor rendered images in the Maya viewport. Now this likely means their work will be more streamlined, with a lot less back and forth of importing their work and having to wait. This will begin at the end of August and finish around the start of September. The next and final new progress tracker addition is the female player head, which is Squadron 42 specific, and it is completing a modeling and texture polish for the female player head, which once the pass on this asset is done, it will then be sent to Tech Animation for a rigging update. This will be happening at the end of August and will also finish towards the end of September. Now to finish with, we have one previously removed deliverable that is now re-added. The returned feature is physical quantum travel movement, which is to perform the quantum travel movement within the physics, along with efficient empty space checks along the quantum travel path to determine when to drop out of quantum travel if a potential intersection might occur. Now the work on this begun earlier this month and lasts 10 weeks, coming to a close around early September. Now the only removal this week is the hull B, which is a bit of a shame, but the reason being CIG needed additional resources for the hull A, so the hull B was temporarily removed until it has been rescheduled. So there we go, some really incredible exciting deliverables getting attention, which if all goes to plan, it could be a pretty rosy year for Star Citizen. With that said, we will surely be discussing more of this over on Twitch, so be sure to follow the link if you want to hang out and listen or chat more about Star Citizen. It is twitch.tv/supermacbrothers Ryan. A huge thank you to my patrons and channel members again. You guys are just the best and I appreciate your support greatly. If you could like the video as well, I would appreciate that, and tick that notification bell if you want to join the notification squad and be notified when my videos go live. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.